reason why I'm coming to you is I ended up basically in a candid way capturing some of the painting that I was doing on one of the Dollar Tree glass candles, this one to be exact. Now, this particular project will actually be on the Dollar Tree DIY Fall Decor boho Southern style. It got to be very long-winded because I was actually talking to you guys and I was painting as I went along. And as I got ready to start editing and cutting down the video, it dawned on me just how much information I had put in there. I was telling you tips and tricks and shortcuts and do's and don'ts. And I thought, well, if nothing else, even though this is not one of these paintings you want to write home about, this is strictly for a splash of color to blend it in with fall decor. But this is one of the best practice glasswares I've ever seen. It is just one of those things. This is great to practice painting, especially if you're a beginner. These are really great. And I'm giving you information on there that's going to be beneficial to you. You're really going to benefit from it. Now, if painting is not your game, if that is not why you view my channel, I will not be offended if you pop off of here and go watch one of my decor DIY videos. That would be great. But if you are curious, stick around. You can always fast forward through this video and get the gist of it. You wanted more painting. You've been requesting it. Bear in mind, it is for entertainment. I am not a professional and know that this in no way, shape, or fashion. I wanted you to know that this video really stops like super fast. I'm showing you how to paint a few things, and some of it I sped through, and then some of it I showed you how to cover up mistakes that I have made on this one. Well, I'm not going to hold you up any longer. Now, if you are a subscriber of my channel, thank you guys. I love your comments, and I'm looking forward to reading them. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoy this information. Without further ado, let's jump on to this video. It bumps right into this one. And stick around because I do actually do a B-roll at the end of this video. Look for the upcoming video that this actual project will be in, which will be Dollar Tree DIY Fall Decor Boho Southern style. And you'll know what I mean. So I want to paint this glass candle, and I am showing you guys a cheater's kind of way of painting, so that if you're trying to figure out where you want everything to be, and you have a generalized idea of what you're placing on it as far as painting, this is the easiest way to do it. These are the maple leaves from Dollar Tree, and I basically laid my maple leaf on there, took a black Sharpie marker, and traced it out. What that will do is several things. Number one, I can literally take and just paint within the lines. Number two, it will give me a bearing on where I want everything to kind of end up and where my placement's going to be. And then that way you can kind of go from there. Also, the third thing, whatever is going to be in the background that would commonly be in the background. So, for example, if I'm going to do a pumpkin on here, then my leaves are commonly going to be in the background. The stem and the curly Q for the pumpkin are going to be out here. So, when you're painting, you have to kind of think in reverse. Whatever's going to be in the background must be painted first. The rest of the things can be added on and around and to. So if you're doing a flower, for example, believe it or not, you actually do paint the center of the flower first. Then you add the petals, and then you add any leaves or greenery to that on the outside of it. So you kind of go backwards with it, per se. You add the leaves after you add the petals, and so on and so forth. So you're really starting with the most oddest thing first. But since this is going to be the background, that leaf, and the pumpkin's going to be in the forefront, then you have to start with the background first and just layer it, and that's what you're doing. Another thing in painting on glass is I am using the Folk Arc enamels, and I'm also using a white nylon brush. The other thing is you do not pre-dampen your brush whenever you're going to paint on glass. You need the whole color. Now, another thing that I do is I put the colors that I know are going to be basically my shading or my base color, you know, like I'm going to be using it a lot. I use those, I put those maybe in a palette because I commonly paint out of the jar. You guys know this by watching what I do. So I'm going to try my hand at this. And you want to load your brush, even if that means whatever that means to you. Basically what loading it is you're brushing it back and forth and you're putting that paint up the bristles of that brush. So you're loading it. And then that way you can, you're constantly going to be touching your paint and getting more of it whenever you do glass. It's not like working with other things that you would do. So basically I'm going to do, you know, kind of the shortcut here. And as you can see, you know, when you're painting on glass, you're really layering it on there. You're really putting it on it. And as you can see, because that marker is not permanently going to stay on that glass. So to keep that paint thick, you do not want to pre-dampen it. You're just going to get it on there. And this is just kind of weaving in and out. And you'll be able to put some finer details later on. So the idea here is there are some painters who really have done enough practice on glass and things of a glass textile that they can pretty much really get that paint slapped on there. And the white bristle brush holds more paint. So that is really key whenever you're doing something such as this. And another thing, when you paint glass, once you put that paint there, you can't be working it like you would if you were doing wood or paper or a different type of material, rather. You can't keep going back to that paint. When you do, you're most likely going to use floating medium that allows you to float over top of the current paint that's there. It's used in several different ways, and so I'm really wanting this leaf to show up very prominent, and that is why you see me putting the paint on there and just moving along. And it dries very quickly. Enamel is what you need to paint on glass. Enamel paints. You can't use just your regular acrylic paints. You want to use your enamel paints. It needs to specifically state enamel paints. If it says multi-surface acrylics, you can do some glass painting with these. But most of the time, your standard acrylics, such as this right here, your standard acrylic paint, that's really designed for all types, like fabric even, wood, leather, things of that nature. But if you're going to paint on glass, you're going to have to use enamels. So now that I've got that leaf painted, and it's probably not looking very pretty at all. It's looking really kind of dull. But just sharing with you guys some things that when you're doing enamels, you just got to get that on there and not overwork it, unless you're wanting it to be like a sun catcher translucent. Then you can do it thin. Now that I've got my leaf on there, it gives me my starting point of where I'm going after this. And that's just a cheater's way of getting your design on there. You can just trace something on there with your magic marker. And then that way you can go back and touch it. See, every time I go near that, I'm going to move that paint. And if you're not wanting to do that, then you're going to have to stay away from it until it dries. You can also, with enamel paints, you can actually bake these at a low temp, and they will become permanent on your glass, and they won't ever come off. And there are instructions on that on most of your paint containers. And if not, you can always Google it or go on the website and it will tell you about that. Pinterest sometimes will have that, blog pages, and so on and so forth. But a lot of times the bottle of paint will actually tell you. Now I want to put my pumpkin on there. And you guys, with pumpkins, think of an oval. So if you want your pumpkin to actually be here, then go ahead and just make you an oval shape. Okay, so there's one oval. And don't get hung up too much on perfection. Just make sure you got your oval made. Now you can go to the side, or you can just make another oval, whichever works best for you. You have to just kind of think about it. Think about a pumpkin. Whenever you're painting a pumpkin, think about a pumpkin. So if I just go right here, and I just make one more little half oval, so to speak, and it's got to make sense to you so that you feel comfortable in what you're doing. Don't worry about the details just yet. Just get your pumpkin painted. Just get the outline of him, the main parts. We got our second oval. Now we want to do the same thing on this side. Just remember, think about the pumpkin and what a pumpkin looks like. So I'm going to do my second oval. Okay, so see, I've got my second oval. Okay, now we got our pumpkin made. So we have our 3 ovals created. So now you have your pretty much laid out pumpkin. Okay, now you can make the shadowing of this pumpkin however you want. You can do black, or you can do a beige color, or you can do some yellow. Whichever suits you. It's just like when you're painting on wood or anything else. So now that I've got my pumpkin created, I am thinking that I want to pretty much maybe use a beige color, and I am using this wider brush as I did when I drew it. Now remember, our first oval, you have to bear that first oval in mind. Where did it hit? Now you can come down and you're on the flat of the brush, or you can go up. I am going to attempt to come down, and I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm not concerned with how straight it is, how deep it is, none of that. Don't sweat it. Now if you want to, because a pumpkin kind of has other little things going on, and we can actually make this look like it's a little more extras going on there. And see how we're just kind of pitching it off over here, and we can do the same thing over here. Now up here at the top where our stem's going to be, think of a V. Think of a V. Just put you a V in there. So that's the whole top of our pumpkin. Now, I know that I'm going to have like a brown or something a little bit more deeper, or I can use black to make the stem. Okay, so using the brown, a burnt umber for the pumpkin stem. Now think of a pumpkin stem and decide which direction you want it to go. Do you want it coming out over here, or you want it going over here? And I think that I'm going to have mine going over there. And that's the great thing about having a long brush, so to speak. So I'm actually going to prop my finger onto the glass here. And as you can see, that is not being just perfect. But just think of the pumpkin stem itself being a little bit darker. Alright, now I can take this little bit that's on this brush, and you know we call it dry brushing. And so rather than hitting the whole area, just kind of brushing at it, so to speak. So how's that looking to you guys? A little bit better? And we had already used that lighter beige color. Now, the other thing that I need to do here is I want to put me a vine and maybe even some green leaves coming off of my pumpkin. This is called a liner brush. And going back with that same brown to make my curlicues. And sometimes you can kind of like start getting your finger going into the motion, like already training it per se, so that when you land, you have to decide, are you going out this way or are you going this way? So since I'm going out that way, I want to bring my circle inwardly so that when I hit, I'm going to be making my circle just kind of go whatever I want. Then if you want one over here, so to speak, a whole lot going in there for the leaf. So maybe if we just kind of come out and down and then up and then over and down, just to try to give it some kind of shape. And yellow school bus, as they call it. And I know that my leaf just needs a little bit of a stem to it and veins coming off of it, which is basically what makes a maple leaf, is all these veins. And I am using a very wide brush. You can use something more detailed and narrow if you like. I'm just trying to think that, you know, people aren't going to be paying so much mind to the detail on something like this because it's more decor oriented. And we got to give it a little more oomph on the edges, so to speak. So this has got some orange along with that brown in there. I'm just doing it at the little tips of my leaves. I don't want those lines on the outer edges of my leaf to be so strong, so I'm smearing them out. This is a glass dry brush, and if you know, for lack of terms on this, so I'm just pulling that color, pushing it back to the edge of that leaf to give it that more fallish look. As I said, the background, and then come forward with what's more bold, more apparent. Okay guys, that's looking a tad bit better there. And that's another thing, there's a little bit of gold in the pumpkin, so you painted something and you don't like it, and that's a real easy fix. You just paint over it, as I've told you before. So you take your flat of your brush and just pull up to make the petals on your sunflower, or this could be a black-eyed Susie. And so that's all you do is just push and pull. Push, raise up, pull. Do that a little bit better. And push and pull. And that will make your sunflower. And then for this area right in here, I just basically, that's more of a just a tap, 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 tap with the brush itself. And then if you need to, you can add just barely get a touch of black on there. And just tap that in, and that'll kind of bring it around there for you. And I put just a little gold in that area, so that's real easy to do. Just take a little bit of gold and you can trim it out. And if you want a little more gold hint going on in there, just a little touch here and a little touch there. And then to make those stand out a little bit more, so that you can actually see those petals, you just, for me, I go down one side. Let me make sure that brush is flat. I just go down one side. Just pick a side, so to speak. Pick a side so that you have some shading, but you have to decide, you have to pick one or the other, either to the right or to the left. Whenever you do that, you have to pick a side. You cannot straddle the fence. You have to pick a side that you want your shading, and whatever you do, whenever you pick the side for your shading, be consistent. Just be consistent with that shading, and that will help that to stand out more, so that you're not boldly seeing the color black, you're actually seeing the shading to make it appear. So there's just less light in that area. Like down here at the tips, maybe to make it stand out a little bit more, so it looks more sharpened. Then that's that candle paper. And then I've just, like I said, have put a few things on there. I mean, it is far from perfect, but it's just more personalized, and, you know, just a way to practice painting. Hi gang, I just wanted to come on and say thank you so much to all my subscribers. I have truly enjoyed all of your comments. You guys are the best. I love reading the comments. They mean the world to me. As you guys know, I do what we call a viewer's appreciation. Now, viewer's appreciation, if you are doing any kind of project, including anything that you've seen on my channel, if you'll tag me at Dandysoap DIY over on Instagram, or join the gang over at the Facebook Dandysoap DIY, we'll be glad to show off that picture. I love to share it in my stories as well as on my Instagram. I truly appreciate you always viewing my channel. Let me know what you think and what you'd like to see. Make some suggestions as to any challenges you would like for me to try out. Something you've seen on Pinterest, I'll do my best to do the research and put it together for you and see what we can come up with. Until later, this is Elizabeth, over and out. Bye, guys.